This show is an interactive one which gives you the opportunity to call in and share your views on the topic of discussion. You can share your thoughts via pzone2023@gmail.com, and you can also call in during the show to engage us in the conversation via the following number, the studio line, which is 08109661910. And for sponsorship, you can also call in for that. And we believe that we need to do more so that we can sustain this particular show, so that we can increase peace in our society. Once again, thank you for joining in on today's episode. Now, over this particular period, there's been a whole lot of talk on what system we are using, and we'll be looking at education today. So I have a co-host, I have a guest, sorry, my co-host possibly couldn't make it because of some challenges, but we are going to be doing this very fine. And I have on standby our guest from the United States, the person of Julie Lilly, an educational consultant and writer from Arizona, USA. Julie is a peace and justice-centered educator who cares deeply about helping to evolve our education system in United States and globally. And she's also passionate about Africa, connected with the tenets of peace education throughout her life, with over 15 years of teaching and leading experience in diverse school settings in the United States and Mexico. Julie now serves as a writer, learning designer, and storyteller who weave a whole lot to create stories to help communities, young persons in different capacity. She is the co-founder of PeacePad, of the PeacePad, and the Peace Ambassador with World Citizens Peace. She's also a Peace Ambassador with World Citizens Peace. She's dedicated to co-creating brief spaces that are grounded in culturally relevant pedagogy and trauma-sensitive practices. I want to say you're welcome, Julie. Good to see you, Julie.
Great. Thank you so much for having me join.
Yeah, good to have you here. Sorry, Monsura couldn't join us early. Possibly we hope that she can join in hopefully before we finish the discussion. She sends her regards. Now, generally, let's go into it. Julie, how are you doing? Let me start by asking. I know it's very early over there. How are you doing?
I am just so happy to be a part of this conversation and grateful to you for hosting me. So I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you very much. You're welcome. So let's get at it because of time. Generally, education is known as the process of receiving or giving systematic instructions, training, or a coordinated form of learning. Education is further seen as the purposeful activity directed at achieving certain aims, such as transmitting knowledge or fostering skills and character trait. So if I may ask Julie, what makes education qualitative or quality in itself?
One of the main factors for quality education comes down to human rights. And in the 1989 Convention of the Rights of the Child declared education is a right, and the United Nations continues to promote that we ensure a inclusive education that is for everyone. And so starting right there with just having access and having inclusivity of different languages, locations, not preventing anyone, example, a female, from attending schools. In addition to that, having a quality education requires training for teachers, for leaders, for all of us who are working with youth or children. And a quality education really goes beyond just mathematics or reading and writing, but it really also is preparation for life. So socio-emotional skills, becoming a lifelong learner, having a mindset that you know you're going to grow and continue to change, and creativity being really fostered. Those are all part of the freedom that we all have to learn.
Thank you for that profound answer. And I will want to touch on something when you talk about lifelong learner. And because over time, people believe that it is schooling that is education. So I want you to touch more on that, how we can see education broadly beyond just schooling. I would like to hear from you what aspect of education makes it broader than just going to school and learning mathematics, just like you said, and seeing how you can connect that with how education can be so qualitative in itself.
Yeah, and I think right here that we really get in touch with different levels of humanity and which education is serving. And that's from the intrapersonal level, starting at the self and having a sense of calm, having a sense of inner peace, knowing yourself, having self-awareness, having tools for managing or regulating yourself, and really finding your relationship with yourself and how you show up in the world. So a quality education starts with those foundations of what is really inner peace, and then builds to other levels of humanity like interpersonal. So when we are talking with others, that we can have differing views and we can still engage in dialogue without violence. Really, we start thinking at these next levels of what is in consideration for the collective good. And so that moves in our levels of humanity to institutional levels, which like here in the United States is formal schooling, but also the cultural levels. You know, you think about whether it's youth or outside of school, how we depict peace, how we depict violence, and moving that through our different levels of humanity. So really starting at the foundation of the intrapersonal, or having deep self-awareness of knowing who you are and the multifacets and intersections of identity that can exist.
Well, I love the fact that you touch a whole lot of things that has to do with calmness, inner peace, and how we can touch on different identity that we gain from different forms of learning. So that leads to the next question. General knowledge has education types to be formal. Formal in the sense of the kind of education that take place in education or a training institution like the schooling, just like we mentioned earlier, in a schooling system which is usually structured by curriculum, aims, and objectives. We know non-formal education to be that kind of education that operates a flexible model of education, which is often community-based, work-based. It might also be a civil society-based setting. And informal education, which take place in daily life activities, in the family, marketplace, streets, even public gatherings, newsstand, or some, we can say the newspapers, vendors, and all that. So, Julie, I would like you to explain which of these types of education can be considered most impactful in attempting to make a social change process happen in any space we find ourselves.
I think you touched on something really important in this question, in that there are many types of education, and that ultimately we are all teachers just as we are all learners. And so having that mindset of whether you're a parent or a caregiver or a family member or a community member, that we're all role models, we're all mentors with each other, and really having that connection is our first spot of how do we create social change, is through a sense of connection and belonging with each other. And education comes preceding social change. So the aspects that we're speaking today, then over time, over spaces, then that yields positive social change through peace building, for example.
Okay.
And in my work, we really focus on trauma-sensitive strategies and culturally relevant strategies, so that when we show up with whether it's curriculum or just working and talking with each other, that multiple perspectives are present and that histories are honored, and we also are keeping a focus on empowerment and getting to know each other. So a framework I'd love to offer to everyone listening is through the peace actions, and
Peace
the
actions,
5 peace
right.
actions.
Okay.
Yeah, and these peace actions were created by an organization called World Citizen Peace, who you mentioned I'm a peace ambassador with.
Yeah.
And these 5 peace actions really offer an opportunity, whether you're in formal education, informal, community level engagement, but they are to seek peace within yourself and others, reaching out in service, protect our environment, respect diversity, and be a responsible citizen of the world. And it is our belief in our work that that these peace actions being lived out, whether it's from a perspective at school or at home or within the community, really is going to be a way to create impactful social change.
Well, thank you for that. And I love the fact that you integrated a whole lot of things in answering that. So let's go straight to the next question, which is, what is the relationship between education and violent conflict?
Yeah, this is a really deep one, and I want to
Very
just
deep.
start with yes. So we will touch on some of the key points here, but I think the way maybe to start is thinking about what are some of the root causes. And there's many different theories for root causes of aggression and of violence. And I'll just touch on a few that I think, especially when we think about conflict zones, not having basic needs, basic rights being met or addressed. That's a huge source of conflict. That often creates a lot of frustration, anger, and of course, fear. And so trauma, post-traumatic stress disorder, prejudice, biases, hate, a competition for resources or power, all of these are contributors to then violence and aggression that we see. So going back to what is the relationship between education and violent conflict? Well, that's where we can think about these different levels of humanity and how are we learning different strategies, different practices that can really allow us to listen to each other, to dialogue with each other, and then to take peace action. So as an example, that might be gender equality. Is everyone able to attend some type of schooling? And what does that mean economically? Are these safe spaces? And so education and violent conflict are both preventative, restorative, and then can create future opportunities. And I think, Moses, you know that violence breeds more violence. And so we also want to keep in mind that there is often a hidden curriculum that can happen.
Can I hear you?
Oh, yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, I can hear you now. Go ahead.
All right. I was mentioning that there is often a hidden curriculum that we need to be aware of as educators and community members, and that is reinforcing stereotypes and biases or having voices or presence of certain groups of people and their perspectives missing. So in order to really address these root causes of violent conflict, education can both be preventative and restorative in nature.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Because of time, we'll go on a short break now. And when we come back, we'll continue our discussion with Julie Lilly, and his educational consultant with the Peace Brad, United States of America. And I'm sure that you will get more of what is yet to deliver. Thank you very much and stay tuned.
UpNet, in collaboration with KAFTAN TV, presents Peace Zone with Peace Ambassadors.
And today is World Peace Day, and with us in the studio we have Moses Abolade, Peace Education and Practice Network Executive Director. Welcome to the studio with us, sir.
Thank you very much.
It is a weekly show designed to share peace knowledge and skills, discuss national, continental and global trends, and provide for mediation time where you can share your conflict situation with professional peace ambassadors and mediators. Peace Zone commences on your screen from February 3rd, 2023 every Friday between 3:30 p.m. to 4 p.m. Channel 124 on Startimes. For partnership or sponsorship and further inquiries, contact.
You're welcome back to the Peace Zone, which is a discussion between myself and Julie Lilly from the United States of America. We're discussing the role of quality education in preventing violent conflict. And we are bringing her because she's an expert in education and also in peace building. And we want to do a comparative analysis of how it works in some climes and how we can transfer some of those ideas to regions, other regions of the world. Julie, are you there?
I am.
Thank you very much. So let's go straight to the other questions. You've explained some things around how the process of education is important, how it connects to violent conflict. So can we get some examples of how and where education has really prevented violent conflict across the globe, so we can tie that with other contexts affected with violent conflict right now?
Absolutely. I want to honor within this question that we are still evolving as humans to reach this goal of truly preventing violent conflict across the globe. And going back to those peace actions, being a responsible global citizen is a part of that. And so certainly our educators who are on the ground, in particular in conflict zones that have transitioned, can provide even further context here. But I'll just add a little bit of what I know from some of the research is that first, a quality education for all if that is not available, that can lead to extremism. That can increase vulnerability for trafficking, sexual exploitation, recruitment of child soldiers or child labor. And so I think we have a lot of evidence of what happens when there isn't quality education. And so on the flip side, when there is quality education, we see, like here in the United States, we see reductions in school violence with the implementation of restorative practices. And those might be things like peace circles or different processes for resolving conflict nonviolently.
Okay.
The World Bank also provides an excellent couple of examples. So one out of the Democratic Republic of Congo, where a lot of political instability and prohibitive education costs. And so like Nigeria's move to free primary education, then eliminating fees, allowed for 200,000 teachers, 9 million students across 10 provinces who have now been able to benefit from more stability and more of a role of the government actually supporting now the schooling system, which is a prevention then for future violence. So I can give you a couple of other examples, but what I want to highlight here too is that this is an area that also needs more research in terms of the longer impacts of programs, how are we measuring outcomes, and what are those correlations? And that can be really challenging to do. And so I think that this is an area we want to also promote as peace learners.
Okay. Because of time, let's just go to other questions. And this has to do with you and your contest. You're in Arizona right now, and we know the kind of mass shooting going on in different parts of the United States. I don't know how affected is Arizona, but I want us to know what challenges are facing quality education over there, and in comparison to how we can use, how you're mitigating those challenges, and how the rest of the world and other regions can also take a clue from that, so that we can have quality education in most part of the world.
Thank you, Moses, for right away naming gun violence, mass shootings, a huge challenge here in the United States. And connected to that in many ways are a lot of attacks on our freedom to learn. And we see this across many regions in the world, where there are attempts to limit or censor or ban books, curriculum. Myself here in Arizona, I was actually censored from the Arizona Department of Education teaching about peace education and justice education, along with other professionals who were teaching on trauma-sensitive strategies and educator wellness. So really, these attacks on our freedom to learn are causing a lot of teachers to be burned out and leave the profession. And when we think about those challenges, we see that in different levels across the world. And so peace and justice education programs can actually provide a really strong antidote in response to those major challenges that we're seeing.
Okay, because of time, can we quickly go to, based on your experience now, can we go to some examples of peace education actions or services or programs that can be done in violent conflict zones to reduce or mitigate either violent action that have been on ground or the one that are yet to take place in itself?
Yeah, and I would say going back to those 5 peace actions, I'm offering that, and I work with Dr. Carrie Seeley to implement these as a framework for life, for school. And so right there you have a beautiful foundation for a framework of which we can build a full peace and justice education program. Another practice that I think is really powerful and certainly used throughout history with indigenous groups here in North America, current day North America, and around the world. And these are called peace circles. And peace circle practices are an opportunity for conflict transformation. Because as we come together in a circle and we have guidelines where only one speaker at a time, and really an emphasis on listening and being able to also have a space to speak your truth about a harm that's been experienced. So when we think about, especially in conflict zones, maybe bringing groups that haven't spoken together or have been engaged in violent conflict with each other, we can start with communication and dialogue through practices like peace circles that ultimately allow us to ask questions, to offer about our experience, and to explore what are some of these root causes of structural violence and inequities that really then focus us on systems and not just on an individual or a small group of people. But through that language of dialogue and listening, then we have a portal in which we can discuss harm and violence and also the antidotes to.
Yes, so let's just round up. I would like you to give your last parting shot on what you can advise Nigerians or people globally or in Africa or globally generally on how to behave peacefully, on how we can strengthen our educational system, just like in one sentence or two.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of ways, and I think access, funding, having data to know what's working, what's not, and raising teaching profession to a higher level, like a doctor, that we have a high degree of respect, and definitely looking at what will benefit the needs of all and coordinating that at our local levels.
So thank you very much. I want to say a big thank you to you for doing justice to the topic, and I hope that we have more sessions like this very soon. And I believe that when we call on you, either for projects, either for engagement like this, you'll be very, very willing to be a part of it.
I would love to come back and keep up this important dialogue. So thank you again for having me.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So special thanks to everyone who have joined in for this particular edition or episode of Peace Zone. And I believe that you've learned one thing or the other when it comes to quality education as it affects peace building generally. I want to tell you, please stay peaceful with yourself, stay peaceful with other people around you, live at peace. And when you do that, we can ensure peace globally. On this note, I want to say special thanks to KAFTAN TV management crew and also all other crew members that ensure that this episode is a success. Please stay peace with yourself, stay peaceful, stay secured, and stay developed. Bye for now.